Hey there, everyone. Steve Gonzer, physical therapist here, trying to stay faithful with doing a lot of lives this January to help everyone get ready for a good 2019 season. Give you guys some tips and tricks to make the season even better, and you can avoid injury. We know that 80% of runners are hurt every single year, so you do have some control over that. I always tell runners that there's a good chance that you're going to get hurt, but if you're frequently hurt, that is an issue, either with your training plan, with your strength training, or with the lack thereof, or just the fact that you don't know when to stop. So I want to cover something. I'm going to show you guys an exercise in this because in the last video, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I've been going live all month to help try to get everyone in the right mindset for smarter training this year. But if you haven't checked out any of my other videos, you can go to the video section on the Run Smart Facebook page, and you can just see a lineup of those. In the last one, you'll see that I had no voice. Sorry to say that it came back for some people, but that is where I want everyone to start, is by looking at some of those videos. We've been talking a lot about smarter training, so I'm going to show this. I'm in the clinic right now, but this is kind of, let's see if I can get that right. What we've been talking about, this is how we train our runners using this new tool we built that can build you a complete training plan. So I'm going to show you this quick, and then we're going to talk about the exercise and go from there. So I talked about before, I'm in a maintenance plan. But let's go, we did a full marathon last time, let's go back to a half marathon. And what this does essentially is it lets you just build up a plan based on a race that you want to run. So here we have weeks of training. I like the 16-week training. I'm in the States, unlike Simon. Hi, Simon. We're at miles there. And then I like to do, let's just call it a 40-mile-a-week plan. We give you an option to start on a Sunday. And then we give this really cool bar where you can make your plan harder or easier. So I'm out of shape, so I'll just say that. And then we build this plan, and this is really kind of if you've seen a lot of my videos on the training hacks, this is what usually everyone does. 59, 59, and go. Making myself dizzy with this. So what this does is essentially build you your training plan using a couple different things that I've been talking a lot about. Your runway, so how do you get into your training plan without getting hurt, so you're prepared. It also gives you the ability it essentially just gives you all your mileage, your pacing, you can move around days, stuff like that. But the 2-to-1 principle is worked in here. You'll see this. This has a little bit of a build on the front end, but then we would drop down the next week. That 2-to-1 principle that is really effective, that I talk about quite often, allows you to build your mileage with 2 weeks on, 1 week off. We do that for all of our runners in here. Let's close this. And then some really cool things, which this little flame icon does not help right now, because what that does is it actually ties into the weather of your local area. And if it's really hot out, we'll actually change your training based off of that little flame icon. Super popular over the summer. And then this little thing just allows you to rearrange your days. So a lot of control. But what I'm really here to talk about is the strength training. So let's see what we have on tap for this day. We give... That's a foam rolling day. Let's go to Monday. It's really hard to run this thing and do this, but that's a note section. So we do this basics day 1. This is what I really want to talk about, is your strength training. So in our training plan, we would take you to a workout that looks just like this. I can't zoom in or out or anything. Oh, God. There we go. A strength workout that would help you in your training. Trouble is, a lot of people aren't doing strength training. I talked about last time, I'm going to hook this up while I talk, is that you want to be focused on building, what I talk about is more like strength here and then strength in the backside. That's where you want to start. And essentially, let me get rid of some ceiling here. Running is effectively standing on one foot and then standing on the other. Simon Ward just wrote hashtag... That's from Jimmy Fallon. Hashtag butt back. We're going to talk about that in a minute because that is super important. But running essentially is standing on one foot and then standing on the other foot. I showed a little rendition of a guy running, right? So he was coming down, he was here, and all that weight is on a stance leg. And that's how we want to strength train. We want to be in a stance position. We do a lot of strengthening here for our runners in our training plan. But let's take a step back from that. I want to show you guys something that gets really butchered in the clinic, because when I do this with runners, they always do one thing. They say, this is why I run, or they just feel awkward or clumsy doing this exercise, which is a simple squat. So before we get you into one leg, and go ahead and try this, can you even throw me a like or a sad face if you can't even stand on one foot, and maybe even just touch your opposite foot without falling over? You get one try at it too. You can't be like Sad face if you can't do it, like if you can. But if you want to start building strength, we don't want to just go maybe necessarily right to this. We want to start with something a little bit easier, which is a squat, then maybe some lunging. Still haven't got rid of my cough yet. In the next video, I'm going to talk about lunging in a way that you guys can lunge smarter so you don't bang up your knees, right? Everyone thinks a lunge is really bad for the knee. I'm going to tell you they're not if you do them right. So we'll talk about that in a future video, but I want to show squatting. And the first thing we're going to do is, as far as foot position, oh man, I love January when everyone's inside. We're going to do feet shoulder width apart, and this is really kind of the standard start position for a squat. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you're not too narrow. Some people will toe out, and if I ask them to straighten out their feet, it feels like they're doing that. That could be somewhat structural, or it could be somewhat your fault. But you want to generally have your feet facing straight ahead. It's okay to be a little toed out, but you shouldn't be massively toed out. You're not riding a horse, okay? So feet shoulder width apart. Now what most runners do is I ask them to squat, and they either do this to the ground and come back up. Really out of focus there. Let my camera catch up. There we go. Or they drive their knees forward, and that's really the thing I see the most, is those knees go forward, and if you look at the center mass, look at my hands. This is where my weight's falling. It's far behind the knee, and what ends up happening, if you just go ahead and hold that position, if you want to give this a try quick, you stand, hold this position, what you're going to feel is a lot of pressure on the front of the knee if you hold it long enough. And what's happening there is you're essentially, you're taking your shin and trying to slide it off the front, or your thigh, slide it off the front of your shin, so the quad really has to contract and contract hard. So instead of doing that and driving your knees forward, we want to focus on butt strength, hip strength, glute strength, whatever you want to call it. We want to tap into the backside. And Simon wrote this with a hashtag butt back. But here's how I want you guys to think about squatting, because you can use this for your warm-up, you can use it for a cool down, you can use it however you want, but if you're not doing this right, it really doesn't matter if you're doing lunges or single leg activity working on strength. So focus on this. You want to keep these shins nice and vertical, a little low arch, a little small arch in your back, and you want to drive your butt backwards. The chest coming down, look at the bend in my knee. I have a bend, but if you look at the orientation of my shin, they're relatively vertical. So what that gets for you is a lot more hip activation. Now this and my low back are holding me up, and it's not like I have a ton of pressure going towards the front of my knees. So by driving that butt back, keeping the spine straight, and coming up, you get a lot better hip activation with the butt going backwards. You almost want to think about hinging from the hip right up front. By doing that, it's super crucial. It's going to help you, because in the next videos, I'm going to talk about some other exercises you can do that really depend on your ability to hinge. So let me show you a progression for that after I cough one more time. Okay, so the progression would be, obviously you can use some weights. You can do some reaching down with weights and pressing up overhead, but here's a better one, because you don't necessarily need to get really big to run well. You just need to be able to control your body weight. You're not running with lead vests, although I have seen a lot of people do that. But here's your progression. So we want to start progressing towards that, balancing on one foot. So I like to have my runners squat, balance on one foot, and then squat, balance on the other foot. So from the side, squat butt back, up and balance. I like to adopt this figure 4 position because that's the running posture for people. So you would squat, up and balance, squat, up and balance. Now, I'll tell you how people usually cheat with this before I finish up here. What they generally like to do is they like to squat, come up, and they either throw themselves out of picture, or what they end up doing is they go so quick that they can't stabilize that squat. So you should be squat, up and balance, and find your center. Now, if this is pretty easy, and you're doing this with your arms, what are you doing? You're not using your core, your glutes, your foot and ankle for balance. You're using your arms, and we see this a lot with runners. They'll run, and they got these really wide arms when they're running. Instead, you can hold onto a ball, hands on your hips, so squat, up and balance. Now you can't get your arms, so as you start to lose your balance, you would find it from your lower body rather than crossing the Niagara River, or the Niagara Falls on a tightrope. That's a Buffalo reference. I realize that not everyone's from Buffalo. But start thinking about that. Start using the squat. Go to one balance. If you'd rather, and you think that's pretty easy, rather than just have us give you our strength workouts, you can go to, I think I posted it in this. If I didn't, I will repost it. runsmartonline.com/train. There's actually full workouts, just like you saw. You can build your training plan and get all the access to the strength workouts just for a $1 trial. But hopefully this helps. If you haven't seen the other videos, go to runsmartonline.com. The videos, or not runsmartonline.com, the Facebook page of RunSmart. Just click the logo and look at the video section. There's a lot more in there. Just be on the lookout, because I'm going to be sending a lot more videos. Next time we're going to be talking about lunging. So hopefully everyone has a great night. Any questions, just hellos. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.